Imagine yourself lying in bed now, the lights dim, the air soft and cool against your skin. The world outside has gone quiet. Even the wind seems to whisper more slowly. You have nowhere to be, nothing left to do, only this stillness and the rhythm of your own breath. Tonight, let the sound of my voice guide you through the quiet corners of Wales, through valleys wrapped in mist, and ruins that dream beneath the moon. These are not tales of fear, but of memory, gentle echoes from places that have learned how to rest. So close your eyes, let your thoughts drift like mist over the hills. You're safe here. You're home in the quiet. And as the night deepens, the stories will begin to whisper soft and slow until sleep finds you. Story 1, Craig-y-Nos Castle, Powys. In the quiet heart of the Swansea Valley, where mist often drapes itself across the mountains like a sleeping spirit, stands Craig-y-Nos Castle, the rock of the night. The walls rise from the valley floor with a stern beauty, part fairy tale, part memory. And in the stillness of dusk, they seem to breathe. You can almost hear the faint echo of music through the corridors, a soft, distant aria. Once, this was the home of the great opera singer Adelina Patti, who built the castle in the late 1800s as both her refuge and her stage. She filled its halls with laughter, song, and candlelight, her voice so pure it was said to make the stars tremble. Now, when evening settles and the last visitor leaves, something of her still remains. The theater she built stands silent, the velvet seats faded, the chandeliers dimmed beneath a thin layer of dust. Yet at night, if you stand in the center of the stage and listen, truly listen, the air hums faintly. Like a note caught between worlds, the castle itself feels alive. Corridors curling into shadow, staircases leading to nowhere, rooms where the light never seems to fade or grow. The walls remember the echo of her applause, the rustle of her silk gowns, the applause that used to thunder through her private stage. And sometimes, and when the moonlight cuts through the tall windows, a single note seems to rise fragile, tender, trembling with longing. The staff who walk its halls speak softly of her, never in fear, but in reverence. They say that sometimes, late at night, doors open as if someone unseen is arriving for a performance. The grand piano plays a few uncertain notes, and the scent of roses, Adelina's favorite, drifts faintly through the air. Outside, the valley keeps its silence. The river murmurs below, flowing as it always has, and the mountains cradle the castle like a secret. You might imagine Adelina still walking there, wrapped in a shawl of lace, humming a tune known only to the dead and the dreaming. There is no sadness here, only the tender ache of something unfinished, a melody that lingers beyond its final note. Craig-y-Nos is not haunted by grief, but by memory, and memory, as all who have walked these lands know, is the gentlest kind of ghost. And beyond the next hill, another story waits, a manor where time stands still, and footsteps echo through centuries. Story 2, Llyn Manor, Nelson. Beyond the folds of misty valleys and rolling fields, where the grass whispers in Welsh, stands Llyn Manor, a house that seems to have stopped somewhere between the breath of 2 centuries. Built in the early 1500s, its gray stone walls have seen more than their share of quiet sorrow and dignified silence. When dusk gathers around its chimneys, it feels less like a building and more like an old soul, one that remembers every voice that ever passed through its halls. You enter through a heavy oak door, the hinges sighing as though exhaling the weight of years. The air is still, perfumed faintly with wood smoke and lavender. Each room is preserved as it once was, the dining table set for unseen guests. Candles melted into uneven towers, the faint shimmer of pewter glinting in the low light. If you stand quietly in the great hall, you might sense it, that peculiar heaviness, like a deep intake of breath. This is where Colonel Edward Pritchard once entertained King Charles III during the English Civil War. Yet even amid loyalty and ceremony, there were betrayals here, whispers of divided hearts and loyalties torn by war. Perhaps that's why the house still feels poised between moments, as if time itself hesitates to move forward. Visitors often speak of gentle presences. A maid in period dress appears for a moment in the corner of the eye, her apron fluttering as she moves through an invisible routine. The sound of skirts brushing stone floors lingers in empty rooms. The scent of freshly baked bread sometimes wafts from the kitchen, though no fire burns there, and sometimes late at night. A door clicks shut upstairs softly, as though someone, long gone, has just retired for the evening. But Lancayac Far is not a place of fear. It is a sanctuary of echoes, a threshold between centuries held together by remembrance. Its silence is patient, its shadows kind. Even the ghosts here, if they remain, seem more like caretakers than haunters, bound not by unrest, but by devotion to the home they once knew. Outside, the wind stirs gently through the orchard. The moonlight lays itself like silk over the stone walls, and from the upper windows, you might imagine a soft flicker candlelight, alive again, dancing in a place that never truly went dark. If you listen closely, you'll hear nothing more than the breathing of the old house itself, slow, steady, and at peace with its past. And further north, where the hills begin to rise and the night wind carries the scent of heather and rain, another story stirs, waiting in a lonely inn where every timber creaks with memory. Story 3, Skirrid Mountain Inn, Abergavenny. The road to Skirrid Mountain winds through a quiet valley, where the mist moves like breath across the moor. It is an old road, one that has carried pilgrims, poets, and soldiers, and at its end stands a place as old as Welsh legend itself, the Skirrid Mountain Inn. Its walls lean slightly with age, their beams darkened by centuries of wood smoke and whispered stories. The sign creaks softly in the wind, and as you step inside, the air feels heavy with history. The floorboards murmur beneath your feet, and the scent of old ale, oak, and rain seeps from every corner. By daylight, it is a warm and humble tavern, laughter echoing beneath its low ceilings, the fire crackling in welcome. But when night falls, and the mountain outside disappears into cloud, a quieter presence takes hold. This is said to be the oldest inn in Wales, and within its timbers are traces of darker times, days when it served not as a refuge, but as a courthouse and a place of judgment. Long ago, beneath these rafters, sentences were passed. A single beam in the stairwell still bears the mark of a rope, a silent reminder of lives ended in the name of law. Yet the inn does not brood upon this. The past here has softened, worn down like a stone path under gentle rain. The voices that remain seem to linger not in pain, but in curiosity, in habit, in the quiet wish to still be among the living. Sometimes, a chair moves when no one is near. A faint chill passes through the room, just enough to make the candle flame bend. Footsteps creak up the stairs when the house is empty, and in the stillness before dawn, a low murmur can be heard, perhaps a prayer, perhaps only the sigh of wind across the hill. The locals speak kindly of the spirits, calling them old regulars. Some say a man in a long coat is sometimes seen at the bar, raising his glass toward no one in particular. Others speak of a woman who lingers near the hearth, her face soft and pale, her gaze fixed somewhere just beyond the flame. Outside, the mountain watches over it all, the Skirid, the holy mountain, shaped by storms and legends. It is said that the very ground trembled when Christ was crucified, splitting the hill in two. And ever since, the place has carried a strange peace and unspoken understanding between the living and the dead. As you leave the inn and step into the night, the air feels cool and forgiving. The mist curls around you like smoke, and the sound of a door closing behind fades gently into silence. And beyond those misty slopes, where the roads narrow between forest and fog, another house waits grand, brooding, and still alive with whispers from its long, noble past. Story 4, Plasteg, Flintshire. On the northern edge of Wales, between Mold and Wrexham, Ucaoth, lies a grand old mansion called Plasteg, a Jacobean house of silver-gray stone, built in 1610 and still standing proud against the slow march of time. Locals call it beautiful, but strange a place where the air feels too still, and every window seems to be watching. As you approach, the trees gather close, their branches heavy with the scent of moss and rain. The gates creak open reluctantly, and the path, lined with yew and shadow, leads you toward a house that feels half dream, half memory. Its tall windows reflect nothing but clouds. Inside, the silence carries a weight not of fear, but of waiting. They say the house has never truly emptied. Over 4 centuries, it has kept its own company of noble families, soldiers, servants, and most famously of one restless heart. The story belongs to a young woman named Dorothy, daughter of Sir John Trevor, who once lived here in the 17th century. She fell in love, and as daughters do, but her father forbade it. In despair, she planned to flee with her beloved, hiding her dowry in a secret chamber. But fate, cruel and careless, took her before she could return for it. Since that night, Dorothy's presence has never left. Some say she still searches for what she lost, not gold, but the love she never found again. The servants of later centuries spoke of hearing soft sobs behind locked doors, of footsteps pacing beneath the moonlight, and of a flickering candle that moves down the staircase long after midnight, as though carried by unseen hands. Yet there is a tenderness in her haunting. Those who visit today describe not terror, but melancholy, the soft sense that someone unseen walks beside them, keeping to her own quiet rhythm. The air feels thick with longing, the kind that has outlived centuries. The house itself seems to breathe with her. The drawing room sighs when the wind turns. The grand staircase groans like an old memory. Even the portraits along the walls, faded and cracked, seem to watch the doorway, as if waiting for her to appear. On some nights, when rain brushes the glass and thunder rolls across the hills, lights appear in the upper windows. They flicker faintly, like lanterns guiding someone home. And if you stand beneath the eaves and listen closely, you might hear a woman's voice, soft, distant, and filled with the sadness of love unfinished. Outside, the gardens are wild now, overgrown with ivy and wild roses. The stone fountains are dry, but still catch the moonlight in their hollow basins. The air tastes of iron and rain. Somewhere nearby, an owl calls once, and the silence folds itself around you again. Plastag remains not empty, not alive, but somewhere in between. It is a house that remembers what it loved too deeply to forget. And if you follow the road westward, through the low fog of the valleys, another great hall rises from the green, a castle of glass and sorrow, where echoes still wander through broken corridors. Story 5, Marble Castle, Port Talbot. Nestled at the edge of Margam Country Park, where the mist drifts lazily through ancient oaks and the air smells faintly of iron and rain, stands Margam Castle, a grand Gothic mansion of turrets, arches, and echoing halls. Its beauty is undeniable, but beneath the stonework, a deeper story hums, one of devotion, loss, and the quiet persistence of memory. The castle was built in the 19th century by Christopher Talbot, a man of ambition and vision, whose love for his home was almost sacred. He filled it with art, laughter, and the sound of life, the chatter of servants, the music of piano keys, the rustle of silk in candlelight. But when time carried its inevitable sorrow, and laughter faded from these halls, the house did not forget. Margam's long corridors are filled with whispers. The air feels different here, thicker, like water. Some say it is the presence of Robert Scott, a loyal gamekeeper who was killed on these grounds long ago. His spirit, it's said, still wanders the estate, calm but watchful, ensuring the peace of the place he once guarded in life. Visitors have spoken of seeing a tall man in Victorian clothes walking the staircases, pausing for a moment before fading into the mist of the next room. Others speak of children, their laughter light and fleeting, echoing from rooms that have long stood empty. The sound drifts like the faint music of wind through leaves, soft enough to make you question if you truly heard it. Doors open without reason. The faint scent of flowers lingers where none grow. And sometimes, near the library, a candle flickers to life in the stillness, as though lit by invisible hands. But the heart of Margam Castle is not haunted by sorrow. It is held together by affection. The spirits here seem bound by love for their home, unwilling to leave its quiet beauty behind. The grand staircase, polished smooth by generations of footsteps, feels almost warm to the touch. The great hall hums softly, and its shadows never hostile, only deep and patient. At twilight, when the park outside fills with golden fog, the castle seems to breathe. Bats sweep across the darkening sky, and the reflection of the windows shimmer in the lake like candlelight beneath the surface. You can almost imagine the past, still unfolding there, a dinner in progress, a voice calling from the balcony, a heartbeat echoing across time. As you walk away, the valley folds around the castle like a lullaby. The last thing you hear is the whisper of wind through ivy, the sigh of a door closing softly behind you. And further west, where the sea begins to claim the air and the cliffs turn pale beneath the moon, another ruin waits, a fortress by the water, where history and tide breathe as one. Story 6, Carew Castle, Pembrokeshire, where the River Carew widens into a shimmering estuary. The ruins of Carew Castle rise from the banks like something half remembered, half dreamt. The stones catch the light of dusk, their reflections trembling softly in the still water. It is a place where time has slowed to a whisper, where wind and tide keep company with ghosts who no longer weep, but wander. Carew's history is long, layered with centuries of ambition and sorrow. Built first by Norman lords, then transformed into a Tudor stronghold, it has seen kings, battles, and long silences between them. Yet none of its stories linger quite like the one of Sir Roland Rees and his loyal companion, a Barbary ape named Satan, a name spoken with both laughter and unease. Legend says the knight's temper was as fierce as his pride, and one night, in a fit of rage, he struck the creature that had served him faithfully. The castle fell quiet that evening, the servants whispering prayers. By morning, both master and beast were found dead, the room untouched, save for claw marks across the floor and the faint scent of candle wax and blood. Since that day, Carew has been known for its restless presence, not angry, but searching, a reflection of that long night echoing through the ages. Those who walk the halls at dusk tell of strange sounds, the scuff of heavy boots, the soft padding of animal feet just behind them. Others say they've heard laughter, faint and hollow, carried across the water like a song nearly forgotten. The air grows colder near the western tower and where the last light of day filters through broken windows, turning the dust into falling stars. But there is another story too, one gentler, almost tender. A white lady is said to appear on still nights, gazing out across the tide. Her gown ripples like mist, and her hands rest against the stone balustrade, waiting for something or someone who never returns. Those who've seen her speak not of fear, but of sadness so deep it becomes serene, like moonlight stretched over still water. As the tide rises, the castle becomes an island, surrounded by its own reflection. The wind hums through the arrow slits, and the cries of distant herons echo like ancient prayers. You might imagine the white lady standing there still, her form blending into the pale sky, while below her, the river murmurs softly, carrying her memory downstream. Carew Castle is not a ruin so much as a remembrance, its walls gently hollowed by love and loss, its stones forever listening to the rhythm of the tide. And if you travel inland again, toward the hills where rain gathers and church bells sound across the moors, you'll find another story, one that waits among gravestones, where even silence has a voice. Story 7, The Skirridin Churchyard, Llanfihangel Crw Corney. Beyond the old roads of Monmouthshire, where the hills rise like sleeping giants beneath veils of fog, lies the churchyard of St. Michael's the Small, doth ancient parish beside the Skirrid Mountain Inn. Its stone walls are low and lichen-covered, its gate hanging slightly askew, as if it has been opening to the same quiet souls for 1,000 years. By day, and it is peaceful, a meadow of tilted headstones and wild violets, where the wind hums through the grass like a hymn half-remembered. But by night, when the moon hangs low over the mountain and the mist drifts down from the slopes, the air changes. It grows thick and silvery, and the earth itself seems to breathe. This place is buried more than its share of wanderers and villagers, farmers, soldiers, children, forgotten travelers. Some graves are marked, others have long since lost their names, but it's said that not everyone here truly rests. For centuries, and the locals have spoken of the Watcher, a shadow seen moving among the stones when the night is stillest, not a frightening figure, but one that pauses and as if to read the names worn smooth by time. They say it's the spirit of a clergyman who once tended this church, a man who loved his flock so dearly that even death could not unbind him from his duty. On nights of storm or sorrow, when wind lashes the hills and the lanterns flicker, he is seen walking between the graves, his outline soft and dim, pausing before the newest resting places as though in prayer. Sometimes, travelers from the inn across the road speak of hearing faint singing, a male voice, low and steady, blending with the wind. Others, more sensitive souls, have spoken of feeling a presence beside them, warm rather than cold, like someone standing guard in silence. There's a kind of mercy in it, the thought that even in death, someone keeps watch, tending to the forgotten and the weary. The church itself leans gently with age, its bells silent, its pews worn smooth by countless hands. Yet the sense of care lingers. The air feels kind. Even the shadows seem to kneel. If you stand beneath the yew tree at midnight, the valley below is a mirror of darkness and mist. The inn's faint light glows across the road, a single flame in the fog. Between them, the churchyard waits, neither lonely nor alive, but held in the quiet balance between both. And as dawn begins to stir, pale and uncertain, the mists retreat toward the mountain, and the world feels clean again. The watcher's task, for now, is done. Further north, where valleys deepen into legend and the wind carries the sound of bells through ancient forests, another presence calls older than the church, older even than Wales itself. Story 8. The Angeli Store of Llangernidu, Conwy Valley. In the heart of North Wales, where the Conwy Valley folds into itself like a secret, lies the small village of Llangernidu, a place so old it feels almost outside of time. There, one in the churchyard of St. Deegan's, grows a yew tree believed to be over 4,000 years old. Its vast, gnarled trunk seems to have outlasted history itself, twisting skyward through the centuries. Beneath its branches, the world feels both infinite and small. The villagers speak softly of what dwells within that tree, a presence known as the Angeli Store, the recording angel. It is said that every year, on All Hallows' Eve, the angel whispers from the shadows of the yew, reciting the names of those destined to die within the coming year. The old and the curious once gathered near midnight, pressing close to the roots, hoping or fearing to hear their names spoken in the dark. No one knows what the voice sounds like, only that it is neither cruel nor kind. It speaks as the wind might through hollow wood, calm, inevitable, and ancient. Some who listened claimed they felt a cold breath against their skin, or heard their name drawn out like a sigh between leaves. Others heard nothing at all, and left relieved, their hearts lighter for a time. The yew itself feels alive in ways no tree should. Its trunk is hollow, its bark scarred by centuries of touch, and yet the inner wood glows faintly in moonlight, like embers that never cooled. The church nearby leans slightly toward it, as though in reverence, and when the night grows very quiet, even the owls fall silent as if listening. One story tells of a man, defiant and proud, who mocked the Angeli Store's legend. He entered the churchyard on All Hallows' Eve, laughing into the dark, claiming no spirit could command his fate. But when the night wind turned and the branches began to stir, a voice called his name twice. By the next morning, he was gone, taken by what the villagers could only call the old promise. Yet for all its eerie fame, the yew is not feared. It is tended with care, honored like a living ancestor. The villagers know it watches over them, recording not to punish, but to remember. It stands as a guardian of time, a bridge between the living and the departed, between the breath we take and the silence that follows. If you stand beneath its canopy, the air feels charged, cool, sweet, and full of memory. The world slows. The heartbeat of the valley can be felt in the earth beneath your feet. And in that quiet, something inside you understands that death here is not an ending, but a continuation. Another name softly added to an endless list whispered by the roots of the world. And beyond these ancient hills, where the wind grows colder and stone walls turn to iron bars, another story waits of a place that once caged the living and now keeps company with their echoes. Story 9. Ruthin Jail, Denbighshire. In the quiet town of Ruthin, where the Clwyddian hills rise like grey waves against the horizon, there stands an old stone building with narrow windows and iron doors. Ruthin Jail, once a prison, now a museum, carries the silence of those who were never truly free, even in death. Its corridors are cool, its air dry and metallic, as though it still remembers the weight of chains and the echo of footsteps long stilled. Built in the 18th century, the jail held thieves, soldiers, debtors, and wanderers' souls drawn together by circumstance and sorrow. The walls absorbed everything: the clatter of keys, the scrape of boots on stone, the faint murmur of prayers whispered to no one. And though time has emptied the cell, the building has not forgotten. If you step inside at dusk, the temperature drops. The light grows thin, falling through the barred windows in long, slanted lines. The rooms feel smaller than they should. In the silence, a rhythm begins: the soft shuffle of unseen movement, the creak of hinges, the sigh of air through a locked door. These are not tricks of imagination. Ruthin Jail holds its history close. Among the stories told here, one name is spoken most often: William Hughes, a prisoner executed in the 1900s for murder. Those who've worked late in the museum say his presence lingers near the old gallows, not menacing, only restless. They speak of the smell of tobacco drifting through the corridors, though no one smokes, of footsteps pacing behind them, keeping perfect time with their own. Sometimes faint murmurs echo from cell 4, low voices conversing in Welsh, then fading into the cold. And there are nights when a cell door, long sealed for display, swings open slowly as though granting some invisible visitor permission to leave at last. Yet, for all its sorrow, Ruthin Jail does not feel cruel. The air is heavy, but calm, a stillness that feels almost contemplative. It's as if the building itself is at peace with what it was, bearing witness rather than punishment. The ghosts here do not seek revenge, they seek remembrance. In one corridor, near the old infirmary, a beam of light always seems to fall upon the same patch of floor even when the windows are shuttered. Guides call it the mercy light, believing it marks the place where one prisoner finally found forgiveness before the end. No one knows his name, but flowers are sometimes left there still. When you walk out again into the night, the sound of your own footsteps feels too loud. The streets of Ruthin are quiet, the lamps glowing softly through the mist. And behind you, the jail stands solemn and still, its windows like tired eyes watching over the town, keeping its secrets without bitterness. If you keep following the road north, past the hedgerows and moonlit fields, you'll find one last story waiting, not of a single ghost, but of a whole town that seems to breathe between the worlds of the living and the dead. Story 10. The town of Bodelwyddan and its Marble Church, Denbighshire. On the gentle slopes of Denbighshire, where fog curls around the hedges and sheep graze on silver grass, lies the small town of Bodelwyddan, a place that seems perpetually touched by light. The fields glow pale beneath the moon, and at the center of it all rises St. Margaret's Church, known to all as the Marble Church. Its white spire pierces the sky, glimmering even in darkness. By day it is radiant, but by night, under drifting clouds and the quiet gaze of stars, it feels like something otherworldly, a monument that breathes. Built in the 1800s by Lady Margaret Willoughby de Broke in memory of her husband, the The church was meant as an act of love, and that love still lingers within its stone. Step through its doors, and the air cools, gentle as a sigh. The marble glows faintly beneath the flickering candlelight. The scent of polished wood and faint incense clings to the walls. Every sound, your breath, your footsteps. The settling of the pews is hushed, as though the church itself listens. But Bodelwyddan is not just known for its beauty. The churchyard stretches far, holding the graves of soldiers who never found their way home, young men from far-off lands who perished in the Great War and were brought here, beneath the Welsh sky, to rest among strangers. At dusk, when mist moves through the stones, locals say the rows seem to shimmer, as though touched by motion. Some visitors have claimed to see figures in uniform walking between the graves, their outlines soft and pale, fading as soon as one blinks. Others have heard low voices, laughter, perhaps, or song drifting across the churchyard, just for a moment before the wind carries them away. There is no fear in these encounters, only a deep, aching peace, as if the dead are not haunting the living, but keeping watch with them. Inside, the organ sometimes hums faintly when no one sits at the keys. The stained glass windows catch moonlight and scatter it across the floor like water. And sometimes, when the night grows still, the figure of a woman in white, believed to be Lady Margaret herself, is said to appear near the altar, her hands folded in prayer. Those who've seen her say her face is serene, her expression neither sorrowful nor glad, but full of eternal patience, the kind that only love can leave behind. Outside, the road that winds past the Marble Church leads through a countryside that feels suspended in time. The sound of distant bells carries through the fog. Somewhere, a fox moves quietly between the hedges, and overhead, the stars glimmer faintly, reflected in the white stone of the church that will never fade. In Bodelwyddan, even the silence has music soft, tender, and infinite. It is the lullaby of the land itself, singing gently to those who listen long enough to hear. Now the night grows quiet again, the stories fade, and the world rests in silence. Let your thoughts drift with the mist over the hills. The spirits of Wales have told their tales, and the valleys sleep once more. Good night.